Hey everyone, welcome back to Wholesale with Joe. Look, I wanted to share in this video on how I did my first deal in wholesaling real estate for myself. And it's a really cool story, honestly, because when I first started wholesaling real estate, as I mentioned, and if you haven't watched my introduction video, I live in Utah. I own my wholesaling business in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I'm also going to teach you on how to do this business virtually. And there are a lot of people out there that are doing it really successfully, and I'm excited to give you those tools as well. So one of the coolest things that I was able to do when I started my wholesale journey is one, I needed to find people that had any interest in selling their homes. And one of the best tools I learned, and we're going to go over all the tools you can have to find people that are motivated to sell, is driving for dollars. Well, driving for dollars is a very cheap tool that you can start implementing immediately to start pulling addresses of properties that are distressed just by driving in neighborhoods and areas that people like to buy properties. So particularly for cash. So when I first started, I got on Google Earth of all places, and I started looking at aerial views of houses that looked like they were distressed, whether the roof was bad or had a bad yard. I tried the street view option for a little bit, which was kind of tough because it took a lot longer. So I just did an aerial view on Google Earth, and I started writing down addresses and using what's called batch leads. Batch leads is a tool that it's a database where you can hold all of your addresses, and they have a driving for dollars tool, so you can actually ping houses in their system, and that's honestly how I got going. So what I did is that I virtually drove through these areas, and just from a roof style standpoint, because like Florida's got a lot of weather issues, as you obviously know, and so there's a lot of roofs that get worn out pretty quick. So I'm like, well, these are people that may not have financial means to fix up roofs, or they're just properties that get decrepit over a period of time. So yeah, I started writing down all these addresses through the Driving for Dollars app that I was using, and the next step that I took is that I used a skip tracing service through batch leads. So for 14 cents, you can skip trace all the addresses that you have, 14 cents per address, and you can just pull a list of all these properties that you've written down, and you can start cold calling them. And one of the best tools as well that you want to implement, like look, you can hand dial these, or for about $180 a month, you can use a company called Mojo Dialer. So Mojo Dialer is a great tool, so where you can use what's called a triple line dialer, so you can call 3 different people at the same time, and it dials for you. So that's the fastest way you can start talking to people. Because look, in cold calling, you need to talk to about 200 people. And Brent Daniels talks about this a lot. You need to talk to about 200 people before you actually get somebody that is interested in selling their house. So I got about 3,000 or 4,000 addresses, and I just started hitting the phones. I was calling like 5, 6, 7 hours a day just to try to talk to anybody that had any interest in selling their home. And I got this sweet lady who's actually from Thailand. She actually had a really big real estate portfolio. She was living down in the Miami area. This property that I was calling about was in Port St. Lucie, so it was a couple hours away. And she said, yeah, I'm interested in selling it. I live 2 hours away, and it's not a property I can really take care of anymore, and I'm starting to get rid of some of my properties. So I said, okay, well, I'd love to buy it from you. And she's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. And she's a pretty savvy person. She was willing to sell it to me at a discount because she knew the property needed work. She didn't want to have to deal with the tenants anymore, and she didn't want to have to spend the money to make the repairs to get a market value. So we were able to negotiate, and originally she wanted it was around $200,000, and I was able to negotiate with her and get the property under contract for $175,000. So I get the property for $175,000, and what I'd done in the process, along with finding all these addresses, I had to find buyers. I had to find people that were actively looking to buy discount properties from a wholesaler like myself. So when I get a property under contract, I can find somebody that can buy the contract from me, so I can make some money. So I got on and went to the local Facebook real estate groups where active investors were looking to find properties. And so I get this property under contract for $175,000, and I had to be able to find a buyer, one that would buy the property with tenants in place, and that had to buy it sight unseen. So fortunately, this house structurally was in really good shape, and the house fixed up was worth around $250,000 to $260,000. And the tenants were good and were paying rent on time. So I get this property under contract, and I send it out I get it under contract for $175,000, and I send it out to a list of about 200 to 300 buyers from emails that I had accumulated. And I found a buyer that was willing to buy the property from me for $191,000. So my very first deal that I did, I was able to make $16,000, and I feel very grateful and very fortunate. Usually it takes you about 60 to 90 days before you get your first deal. I was able to get my first deal within the first 5 days. And look, I've been doing this a long time for other companies and other individuals. I had about 6 years of experience at that point, talking with sellers and negotiating things like that. So I knew how to talk to people on the phone. But I promise you, if you have the mindset and you have the stick-to-itiveness and you invest the time into talking to as many people as you possibly can every single day, you can get a deal faster than 60 to 90 days. But that's the typical time frame before you get your first deal. So like I said, my first deal, I was able to make $16,000. The closing went smoothly. The buyer agreed to pay all the closing costs. There was no title issues or anything like that. So I got the property under contract for $175,000. I sold that contract to another investor for $191,000, made $16,000 my first deal. And the cost to do that was probably $300 to skip trace all the phone numbers and to use the dialing service that I used to do that. So that's how I did my very first deal in wholesaling real estate. And you guys can do the same thing too if you apply those same principles. I wish you luck.